This is Rickie. Rickie is an engineer. No, not that type of engineer, he's a software engineer. Rickie's story started here. For a lot of kids, school is just, well, school. It's got its highs and lows, successes and failures. But for Rickie, it wasn't so simple. Primary school was full of challenges, upset, and the occasional exclusion. Rickie wasn't an inherently bad kid, his teachers just didn't understand him. No, they literally couldn't understand him. Rickie's language was so poor and sometimes incomprehensible, he went to speech therapy. He lived in the bottom sets and had a teaching assistant with him the whole time. At year 6, he struggled to read and could barely write. Rickie simply didn't know how to express himself like the other children. Meanwhile at home, his dad was battling drug addiction. He lived with his mum, and though she was supportive of him, she couldn't help him much with education because she had 4 other children to look after, and Rickie was a challenge on his own. Then came secondary school, the next big step. New students, new friends, and new teachers. But unfortunately for Rickie, he got sent straight to mini school, an offset from the main school. Mini school was for students with behaviour problems and learning difficulties. So for the next few years, Rickie would spend every day at school with the same teachers, the same 6 other students, and the same teaching assistant. Rickie and his friends messed around a lot, but some of the teachers didn't have the time to support them in the right way. Rickie used to get frustrated that he couldn't read. He used to open books and pretend to read just because everyone else could. That was until he found something that sparked a real change for him. He found an online game called Runescape. Rickie took a shine to it, like many kids his age did, but sadly, his reading and writing ability held him back from playing it to the full. He was stuck in the tutorial level for months because he couldn't read his way out of it. That was his world. It wasn't until he went to a friend's house to play did he realise there was so much more to the game. For the first time, Rickie had found a reason to read and the desire to learn. At home, Rickie moved from the place he grew up to a new housing estate with his mum and stepdad. And that's when Rickie became more attached to his computer and made a ton of online friends through gaming. This meant he had to learn how to read. Things sped up for Rickie. His reading and keyboard skills improved, and by the end of year 8, he had made 2 websites, one of which he got paid for. This was a massive achievement for Rickie. He started to worry less about school and his peers, and he was more interested in getting home to his computer. This new way that he could express himself without being judged, something which Rickie had always struggled with. The clock rolled into year 9, and Rickie's behaviour, determination, and ability to learn improved. He became a prefect and found more reasons to learn how to read and write. Plus, he didn't need a teaching assistant anymore. But then in year 11, 6 months before he finished school, he was permanently excluded for skipping a class, something the new head teacher did not consider forgivable. Getting kicked out of school was gutting because it felt like he'd improved loads. He could only come into school once a week to a separate building, leaving school with a handful of Fs. Rickie approached college and was able to read and write, but still not at a level of his peers. He wanted to study IT, but the careers advisors said he wouldn't ever be able to do that, and should look at things that were more realistic, like catering. This was a running theme for Rickie in the years that followed. It seemed like at every point, someone was telling him he couldn't achieve the things he wanted to. Rickie was put onto a 2-year catering course at college, and found a part-time cleaning job in a factory. It wasn't glamorous, but being in work was important to him, and college gave him the ability to focus and overcome his learning difficulties. Speaking to a careers advisor, he was told he needed to get better maths and English qualifications if he were ever to get a job in IT. Then, at 18, his dad died from drug abuse. Life at home with his mum wasn't going well. Rickie spent every evening locked away in his room. He got really depressed. But when everything felt like it was crumbling, he met a girl at a church event. Soon afterwards, they got married and had a baby together. This was the big wake-up call that Rickie needed, and his love for computers called to him. After all, he didn't want to be a janitor for the rest of his life. Rickie found a local careers advice service and reached out to them. Fortunately, they helped him to apply for a level 2 IT apprenticeship with the council. He applied for 5 separate positions, 4 rejected him, but 1 gave him a spot. Taking on an apprenticeship and leaving a full-time job as a janitor was a big risk for Rickie and his wife. It meant that he would go from his minimum wage salary of $1,000 a month to a third of that. Rickie and his wife carefully considered the change, and he decided to take the leap of faith, especially as he had his sights set on working for the IT company Capgemini. Rickie passed the apprenticeship with flying colours, but was not kept on by the council. This meant for the first time since school, Rickie was jobless. The stress during this period, being out of work and having a child, caused a lot of strain on his marriage, and he ended up getting divorced. Life wasn't going well, and Rickie started to regret taking the risks he had. This is when Rickie found Kirsty from Talent Match. After hearing his story, she was shocked to hear how so many people had told him he would never get into IT. She pointed him towards a Get Started with Apps program. Here, Rickie was able to meet Michelle from Capgemini, and when he expressed his desire to work for the company, she helped Rickie onto a 2-week placement. It was there that he demonstrated his willingness to learn and impressed them enough that Capgemini decided to give him a bespoke apprenticeship. Since then, Rickie has passed the crucial examinations for Level 2 Maths and English and is excelling at his job in Capgemini, something that people for so long told Rickie he would never be able to do. He learned how to overcome his learning difficulties, learned to get back up, and after years of fighting, he is now in his dream job. Don't get too caught up looking to others or their successes and failures. Sometimes it can feel like others are climbing much faster than you and you keep slipping up. But we learn so much more from our failures than we do our successes. The trick to it all is, don't be afraid to fail. By putting yourself out there, making yourself vulnerable to fail, do the course you want to do, build the website you want to build, or go for the job you want to go for. By making ourselves vulnerable to failure, we open ourselves up to grander success. It is the leaps of faith that we make that truly allow us to grow and learn. Everything changed for Rickie when he stopped focusing on what others said he could or couldn't do. He started focusing on what he wanted to do, who he wanted to be. Then he found the right people who were willing to give him the chance. Only you can know the limits of your potential. Forget all the other voices saying you can't. Listen to the voice that says you can.